Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Happy Friday, guys. We're finally caught up. For those of you who stayed with me along the way, thank you guys so much for being so supportive and just waiting it out. I know you guys wanted to see really new stuff really bad, so it was really meant a lot to me that you guys stayed around. You guys supported the channel anyways, and you guys just kept the channel going and kept me going. I've been going through some rough times recently, so it's definitely pushing me forward, and I'm really happy that you guys have been around to support. But yeah, like I said, happy Friday. We're going to be talking about the new standard Kagero deck today that came out of our new reboot V-BT01 set. So before that, just a quick announcement. I'm going to have a second channel soon. I know I've mentioned this in most of my videos, but in case you haven't seen or heard it yet, I will probably be making an announcement about it on Monday, what kind of channel it's going to be, who I'm going to be doing with, if I'm going to be doing it alone or not, or whatever the deal is going to be with it. I'm going to be making a big announcement on Monday, so you guys can look for a video on Monday kind of surrounding that or what that has to deal with. But yeah, let's get right into the standard Kagero deck while we're talking about, so we don't have a G-Zone anymore. So we're just going to be talking about our main deck. Which is the deck, basically, is the only deck that we use in standard because it's only the main deck. So let's talk about our grade 3s. So first we have our main grade 3, which is Dragonic Waterfall. Some people could argue that Dragonic Overlord is the main grade 3 of this deck, but it's really Dragonic Waterfall. Like, most people know it. If they don't know it, then that's weird. But it's not your main grade 3 that you prefer to ride first. It's just your main grade 3, like your finisher, like what you want to be on at the end of the game. So Dragonic Waterfall, it has two abilities. The first ability is when it is placed on the Vanguard circle, because it's a Vanguard only ability. When placed, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rear guards and retire it. So you can basically retire one of your opponent's attackers. Pretty good. The only thing that this doesn't work against is Promised Daughter in OTT because it can't be retired by an ability. But otherwise, pretty good. Allows you to get rid of your opponent's attackers. Your opponent has to replay cards from their hand to get more attackers on you. And also, it triggers some of your when a unit is retired effect in your deck, like Airmo or Ralpia. Skills like that. It's just really good. Can destroy your opponent's interceptor too before you go into the skill, which is really important because your opponent will be guarding a lot from their hand / intercepting to guard the second skill. So the second skill is on Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, you can Soul Blast one grade 3 card, and then until the end of the battle, this unit gets plus 10,000 power and a critical. And then your opponent cannot call Sentinels from hand to guard circle. So basically what that means is that this card will get really big, and your opponent cannot PG it. So your opponent has to find another way to block it. So that will be with a couple cards from their hand, if not a lot of cards from their hand, depending on what they have in their hand. So this card, since it gains a critical as well, can be really threatening to your opponent. And sometimes when used in combination with Dragonic Dais, is attacking for 3 crits sometimes, and that's enough to just end the game a lot of the time, especially if it's your second time riding to grade 3. That's the only time that you're able to use it, really. So yeah, using these in combination are really scary for your opponent, and it's just a really big attack that's hard to guard. It also has the Force Imaginary Gift. Kagero is Force, so you know, just like the Royal Paladin deck that we did yesterday, this allows you to whenever you ride a grade 3 with the Force Imaginary Gift, you can choose one of your circles and it gets plus 10k for the rest of the game. So you put a little marker on it and it gets plus 10k for the entire game. So pretty good. In Kagero, something that I should mention, as opposed to Royal Paladin, in my opinion, you want to put your force markers on the rear guard circles because it's all about your rear guards and power and numbers and stuff like that. Kagero is kind of like a solo dolo deck. You kind of just rocking with your Vanguard, and your rear guards are just there for support if you need it, but you don't really need them to finish out a game. You can just have your Vanguard. So every time I get a Force Imaginary Gift, I kind of just stack it under Vanguard because it seems to be more powerful to just stack it on Vanguard in Kagero rather than spreading them out amongst the rear guard circles. Then our other grade 3, which is Dragonic Overlord. For those of you who are old players, you know that this is the card that we were scared of back in the day, and it's kind of still the card that we're scared of in Standard. if your opponent checks a crit trigger or, you know, a draw trigger, just because if they check a draw trigger, they literally still got equivalent to a twin drive in plus, because after they discard 2, they still got 3 off of their drive check, and then they're going to drive check 1 more. So, you know, 3 minus 2 plus 1, still 2. So they still get, you know, if they check a draw trigger or a crit trigger, I get pretty sad about my opponent being on this card, or, you know, being able to hit or whatever, especially now that Dragonic Overlord, unlike back in the day, it can only attack rear guards, then Vanguard. It can now attack Vanguard and hit Vanguard and then restand on Vanguard. So that's very, very cool. They made sure to limit that very heavily by making you discard 2 and counterblast 1, which I think is a good effect for it, because if you're using it to attack Vanguard twice and it hits, then it kind of punishes your opponent a little bit, because if they don't check any triggers, they're actually discarding a 2 to get another attack. So it's better for you because they're discarding more from their hand, and then it's like the plus of that turn as far as drive checks is just equivalent to if they were grade 1, 2, or 3, or sorry, grade 0, 1, or 2, because they just get a single drive. Even though they get triple drive, they discard 2, and then they drive check 2, discard 2, and then they drive check 1. So they just end up getting that 1 as a net plus. So very, very good. And then, so I think it's very balanced, a card, unless your opponent checks a critical trigger or something like that, or double crit, God forbid. You can't block it, and they stack all Vanguard. Like, it's just crazy. But it has an activation skill on the Vanguard rearguard circle. That is once per turn. You Soul Blast 1 during the main phase, and this unit gets plus 10,000 power. And then the second ability, like we talked about, is a Vanguard skill only. Once per turn, when the attack of this card hits, counterblast 1 and discard 2 cards from your hand. Stand this unit, and it gets -1 drive until the end of the turn. So very, very good. Then we have 4 Berserk Dragon going into our grade 2s. Berserk Dragon used to be, for you old players, the Counterblast 2 card that destroys a card, but now it's updated and it's much better in the standard format. Its skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle. When it is placed, Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, and then you choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it, and then if this unit's on Vanguard Circle, which means you always want to ride it as your grade 2 ride, then you draw a card. So not only do you get to destroy one of your opponent's cards, but you get to draw a card, so, you know, extra pluses for you. And then when it's on the rearguard circle and it attacks a Vanguard, if the number of your rearguards is greater than your opponent's, this unit gets plus 3,000 power until the end of the battle, and it is a 10k base, which means against other force decks like Royal Paladin, or what will be in the future like Spike Brothers, stuff like that, this will allow you to get plus 3,000 power and be able to hit your opponent even without playing a booster. Then moving on to our next grade 2, we have 4 Dragon Knight Nahalem. Like I said, another card for you old players. This used to be a 10k vanilla, but now is a 10k with an ability. So Dragon Knight Nahalem skill is when it is placed on the rearguard circle, counterblast 1, and choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the back row and retire it. And this unit gets plus 5,000 power. So you can snipe your opponent's back row, something that no other clan at this point in the game can do right now, in standard at least. So you really want to take advantage of that, snipe your opponent's important boosters and the important cards that are kind of hiding and finagling in the back and trying to, you know, get around your effects or whatever. You can just kill them because, you know, Dragonic Waterfall can't touch units in the back, but Nahalem and Berserk Dragon can, and so that just gives Kagero kind of like an ability that no one else can do right now. Then we have 3 Dragon Armor Knight. Dragon Armor Knight is a pretty good card in my opinion. We just use it as a beater. Its skill is on the rearguard circle when it attacks a Vanguard. If the number of my opponent's rearguards is 3 or less, which it should be at all times if we're using our retiring skills right, then this unit gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the battle. So it becomes a 15k. If it's boosted by something like Airmo, plus 11k, that's a 26, 11k boost. And then if it's boosted by like 13 or something like that, that's like a 28k, which makes a great number against Force Vanguards and everything else. Moving on to our grade 1s, we have 4 Flame of Hope Airmo. This used to be a 6k that allows you to discard a card, draw a card when an attack hits when it boosted. But now what it does is when it boosts, it gets 3,000 power, so it's always an 11k booster. That's pretty good. And then the other rearguard ability is when your opponent's rearguard is retired during your turn, you can retire this unit and draw a card and countercharge 1. So a little bit of a resource management card, can draw us cards while refunding our costs, and it just makes it really, really good to play 4 Airmo. Then we have 4 Lizard Soldier Ralpia. Ralpia can be really good behind the Vanguard circle when you're looking to do Dragonic Waterfall that turn, or in general when you just need an attacker, you can put in the front row, and then you can play a card that retires a card and retire a card, and this card will get plus 5,000 because that's its ability. Its skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle. When your opponent's Rearguard is retired during your turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, so can become a 13k booster, 13k attacker. If you retire more than 1 card in the turn, it becomes 18k, 23, and it stacks on and so on and so forth. So then we have 4 Embodiment of Armor Bar. This used to be an 8k vanilla for you old players, but now it is an 8k with a skill now, a good skill at that. It has a Rearguard skill that says when placed on Rearguard Circle, cost Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, and then you choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less Rearguards in the same column as this unit, retire it, and if the number of our Rearguards is greater than our opponent's, then we get plus 5,000 power to bar. So it can become a 13k attacker or a 13k booster. Also really good. Then we have 2 Dragonic Gaius. Like I said, works really well with Waterfall, can be really threatening to your opponent. When it boosts a grade 3 or greater, you counterboss 1 and put this card into your soul, and then the boosted unit gets plus 1 critical until the end of the battle. So you don't count the boost towards the attacking power because it would be going into the soul as it's boosting, and boost is continuous, so if something happens to the boost during the battle, you know, it goes away. Then for our starter, we run 1 Lizard Runner Undux. Undux, like most new starters in the V series, has the effect that when you ride on it, you draw a card. So pretty simplistic, you just ride on it, draw a card whenever you ride a grade 1, or if you ride another grade 0 for some reason, you draw a card. Then for our trigger lineup, we have 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. Pretty standard in the standard. You see what I did there? But yeah, pretty standard in standard for a while. Anything that's not Excel will not really have the ability to run 4 triggers or have the choice of running 4 different triggers. So it is kind of standard just to run 8 crit and 4 draw and 4 heal. Maybe in the future they'll make a different type of trigger for us, or for the other clans, or allow them to use front triggers or whatever. I kind of thought that front triggers would be given to everyone just because the clans that I was most worried about getting them got them as a specialty. So I was kind of confused by that, and I'm questioning Bushiroad's decision on that, but I have faith that they know what they're doing with their new game mode, and that they will continue on in a manner that is befitting of the life of their game, or the lifeline of their game. Then we have 2 Embodiment of Spiritar and 2 Rakshasa, and then we have 4 Wavering Guard Bari. So this is our Sentinel trigger of this deck. It is basically our draw trigger that is also a PG and also a Sentinel. So you can discard a card and put this card on your guard circle, and then you can like perfect guard one of your units. So pretty good. Perfect guards are also draw triggers now. Also makes it so that if you lose a PG to the damage zone, you're also getting a draw trigger off of it and power on the defensive. So makes it really good rather than just playing PGs and damage checking in, being like, oh dang, I lost the PG. But then we run 4 Dragon Monk Ginjo as our heal trigger, and it's just vanilla as well from the V series. And something to note for you guys is, if you guys didn't see the Royal Paladin video, a lot of the powers have changed, as well as the guard powers for you old players. If you're a new player, don't worry about what I'm saying right now because you're just learning the way that it is now. But if you're an old player, you definitely have to get used to the fact that like we have a 13k base, like grade 3s if you're playing Force. We have some 10k grade 2s as well, and then we have 8k grade 1s, and then our grade 1s also have 10k shield now. Our grade 2s with the effects still have 5k shield, so that hasn't changed. And then we have our crit triggers having 15k shield, our draws being PGs, and then our heal triggers being 20k shield. So with that being said, just be very aware of what you're guarding for. You don't want to be wasting guard, especially in this game mode. It's just very important to play strategically. Whereas in premium, you could mess up as far as guarding, and it won't really cost you the game. In standard, that could be a mistake that you won't live to regret. So going into our game 1, we are playing against Nova Grappler. So we do our mulligan, and for those of you who don't know the new rules, let me know if you want me to do a video on the new rules or not as well. I don't think that it's worth doing because I think anyone watching already knows how to play. But yeah, do let me know. So our opponent places a rear guard on the rear guard circle. I start taking damage because I thought I was going to check a damage trigger, but I didn't the whole time until the last one where I got a draw trigger. So I retired his card. I used Airmo to draw another card and retire. And then I played Dragonic Gaius to the field. I attack for 18, get a critical trigger, crit to Vanguard, power to rear guard, and then I attack for 25. He PGs. And then he rides Assure Kaiser, plays Burst Riser. We guard, and then attacks with Vanguard. We guard for a 2 to pass. He checks a draw trigger, giving to rear guard, and we take the attack. And then we have a lot of grade 3s in our hand, which is really bad. We'd rather just have, you know, like a Dragonic Overlord in our hand and a Dragonic Waterfall. We don't want to have more than that because our hand just gets really clunky and we're unable to guard. So thankfully we get another PG. Our opponent goes to his 5th damage, and then he plays a full board trying to kill us. So then he attacks for 14, we intercept. He attacks for 19, we guard with a 10k shield. He attacks with his rear guard for 27. We don't have a crit trigger, so we have to guard with 2 cards. Then he attacks with Vanguard for 12. We PG it. He checks a heal trigger, giving power to his riser, and then he gets a grade 3 using the Assure Kaiser skill to give it 10k, and that's the whole reason why we couldn't block it. If he hadn't gotten a grade 3, like a grade 2 or another trigger, we would have been able to PG Burst Riser with, you know, the Nahalem, and then ride the Waterfall, and that would have been game for him because he wouldn't be able to block because, you know, Waterfall would be too big with a crit. And then we would also retire one of his grade 2s, probably the Burst Riser right here on the Excel circle. So yeah, just one of those games where it was like, you know, kind of a luck sack, but that's like every game in Standard. So it's really just up to what your opponent checks at any given time and how the game proceeds, who gets the most triggers and which triggers they get at which time and things like that. But there is skill and strategy involved to it as well. At a point, it is just a lot more luck reliant, though, than Premium was. So game 2, we're playing against Kagero. We go first, we ride. Our opponent rides and then draws a card and checks. We take a damage. We ride a 10k and attack our opponent for 2 crit. They get a draw trigger, and they're able to play a card, and they won't attack us with Vanguard just because their skill says that. So it's basically they're running Strike In, which is a card to compensate for the fact that you usually want to ride Dragonic Overlord and pressure your opponent a lot with it. Not much to say other than that. Like, it's just a card that you pressure your opponent with, or it's just useless to you. Not very useful at the very least. So our opponent rides Waterfall, which is a terrible first ride, and then our opponent attacks us, and they get a heal trigger and a crit. So it's kind of sacky on their end, but on our end we're good because we're at 3 damage. And it had an extra crit, so we're actually at 5 now. But we ride our own Waterfall, we retire his card, and then we use our Berserk Dragon to retire his other card. He has kind of a grip still left in his hand, though, so we're trying to play cautious, trying to play casually in case he has another Waterfall that he can ride. We attack with a crit, and he decides to no guard. We don't check any triggers, so he takes 2 damage. And then we attack him for 13 because he didn't check a trigger, just like we didn't check a trigger, so I guess it's fair. And then he guards it with a Strike In. So then he draws for turn. I can see that he doesn't have another grade 3 to ride, which honestly made me very happy because if we would have had to guard like a full out Waterfall, again, that would have been really bad for us. So our opponent plays Bar, Counter Boss 1, Soul Boss 1, retire the other unit. And then he plays Berserk Dragon, but doesn't use the skill. I'm not really sure why. He had plenty of resources to do it. He just chose not to for whatever reason. So we guard for a 2 to pass. Our opponent checks a critical trigger, puts all power and affects the rear guard, and our opponent attacks for 36 and we guard for 38. So we ride Dragonic Overlord, giving force to Vanguard again. And then we play Ralpia. We use the skill of Berserk Dragon to retire his Berserk Dragon to get that shield out of there because we don't want him intercepting or anything like that. So then we play 2 cards down. We attack for 13 to our opponent's Vanguard. He takes it, and then we attack for 2 crit to Vanguard for 43. He guards for a 2 to pass, and then he guards for a no pass. So, because he really doesn't want Dragonic Overlord hitting, I guess. So then we check 2 cards. One of them is a heal. Thank goodness, because without that, we probably would have just lost. And then our opponent takes the last damage, and he doesn't draw grade 3 again. So pretty unlucky on his part. And then he just plays some rear guards down to the rear guard circle. He plays a Ralpia, and then he plays a bar so that he can get rid of our Berserk Dragon, which was a pretty smart choice because he's getting rid of some of our shield in the form of Berserk Dragon being able to intercept. But then he uses the skill of Air Mode to draw a card, and he does draw grade 3. Unfortunately, it's past the ride phase, so then he plays his Gaius, and he's going in for an all-in kill turn. He Soul Blast 1 to give Dragonic Overlord power, and then he attacks with Waterfall, uses the skill of Gaius, and the only thing that I could do was 1 to pass it and hope that he doesn't get it. So I do a 1 to pass, and because that was the only way I was going to be able to block one of the attacks, and if he checked a critical trigger, I would just eat the L, basically. But he didn't check anything, so we guard the other attack with 1, and then we take the damage that our heal allowed us to take. We draw a grade 2, we just play it down, and then we attack rear guard for 8. Then we attack Vanguard for 43. He no guards, so we check a grade 3 Dragonic Overlord and a Ralpia. And even if he would have took it and got a heal trigger, we could have restood and attacked again, and he would have had a double 6 damage heal. So that ended up being GG just because of that heal near the end. So you guys can kind of see what I'm saying. If you know that you're really lucky, Standard is the format for you. You can get by with so much luck in Standard and just beat out a completely skilled player who deserved to beat you. I'm not saying that they always deserve to beat you, but Standard is the format for that. If there's going to be any large upsets or anything like that, between a lack of skill between 2 players, then it's definitely going to be because of Standard's just ability to sack your opponent. So our opponent goes first this time. We ride, we attack them. They counterblast Soul Blast for Berserk, and then they draw a card and they attack us. We take it as well because we also have a Berserk we want to ride, so we counterblast Soul Blast on our own. And then we are rushing, so we attack with our cards, and then he takes 2 damage, which is cool. He rides Dragonic Overlord, gives Imaginary Gift to Vanguard, and then he calls a Berserk Dragon. We guard, and then he attacks Vanguard for 36. He added an additional 5k on accident because he thought that he got my rear guard sniped, that I didn't block it. So we take his 36. Yeah, so we take his 36k attack. He gets a draw trigger, which makes us pretty sad, like I talked about in the deck building version. Even though we only take 1 damage, he did just not minus off of using Dragonic Overlord skill. So, just kind of free for him. It could have been a lot worse, though, if we checked the crit, so I'm thankful for that at the very least. But we used Berserk Dragon to retire his Berserk Dragon. I just wanted to get some shield out of the way. My opponent definitely thought that I was going to retire the Ralpia in the back, but I don't really care about that as long as he's not attacking me with a bunch of rear guards. So we get a draw trigger of our own, and we actually get double draw triggers, so we're actually blessed ourselves. And then we attack for 35, he takes it. He rides Dragonic Waterfall, gives Imaginary Gift to Vanguard, and retires a card. And then he calls a Dragonic Overlord to rearguard circle, because I think he's definitely trying to go in for, some kind of winning push here. He uses Dragonic Overlord skill to Soul Blast 1 give +10. And then he attacks our Vanguard for 56 to crit. And then I guard for a 2 to pass. After thinking about it, I decide that it would be best to guard for a 2 to pass, because if he checks 2 triggers and all Vanguards, I guess I just lose if one of them is a crit. Even if that does happen, he has to check 2 crits to all Vanguard and us lose. And then he has to check 2 crits for the rear guard to kill me. So I figured if he has to check 2 crits either way, or at least 1 crit and another trigger, it's best to just guard the Vanguard and hope that he doesn't check double crit. So he did check 1 crit, which he gave to rear guard. I was really scared. and then he checked a heal trigger, which sucks, but it is we can deal with that basically. So he passes turn over to us. We ride Dragonic Waterfall, giving power to the rear guard, and we use our skill Dragonic Waterfall to attack for 61. Our opponent guards for 68 for a 1 to pass, and then they throw down their last card, hoping that we don't check a crit, just like I did last turn. And then we don't check a crit, so we attack for 13. They just have a perfect guard left in their hand, so they can't do anything about it. Then they top deck into Hollum, they play it to the field, they retire one of my cards. And at this moment, when he went into battle phase, I knew that I was going to win, just because I have double PG. Like, there's no multi-attacking really in standard, unless you're playing Nova Grappler. So I knew that I could just double PG and have a waterfall left, so I rode that waterfall. I played the Dragonic Overlord, and then I attacked with waterfall skill 53 with a crit, and I retired his grade 2 when I rode it. And then I checked 2 cards, 1 to draw trigger, and then he takes 2 damage, and that ends up being game. So yeah, that was game 3, and my opponent just, you know, couldn't guard it. It was good that we had a waterfall in our hand the whole time, because we could kind of tell the direction of the game, how it was going to go, regardless of both of us stacking triggers left and right. But yeah, that has been the video for the FutureFight V-BT01 Kagero deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like on the video. It helps a lot more than you guys might think. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell button next to the subscription button if you want to stay updated with the channel and stay updated with our videos and what's coming. If you click the bell button, it actually gives you a notification every time one of our videos goes live. And then you can use the description down below to check out our social medias, which would be Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I like to post a lot of things on the Facebook regarding the channel. If I'm out of town, in a tournament, whatever it may be, you guys will get constant updates on the Facebook. If I'm not posting videos and you guys are not getting updates to the videos, you'll be getting them through my Facebook. So definitely stay tuned to that. And if you want to support the channel a little more than liking and subscribing, this happens to be your favorite channel, you want to give back a little or enter some contests, whatever it may be, you can check out the Patreon and our merch store down in the description down below as well. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire. Hope you guys have a happy Friday, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.